We mentioned that Minnesota, they don't really have an elite running back as well, but you know what they do need at this point?
Yeah, they do. He was hurt.
Yeah. That's a good point. Well, we got Case Keenum here. What the situation here, of course, he was that backup quarterback signing in free agency last spring to the Vikings, and then he went to become the starter, replacing that injured Sam Bradford. The Vikings could tag him, eating a $23 million cap charge this year. Minnesota has over $56 million in cap space, and so they certainly can afford this. You know, and Keenum played some of his best football last year when he was outside the tackle box. Per NFL Next Gen Stats, he threw 7 touchdowns, no picks on plays of that kind, the most TDs without an interception by any player in the league. Keenum's completion rate and passing yards and such throws were also among the best. So, guys, this one's going to be a no-brainer when we go look back at an elite moment.
Oh, what'd you
for
pick?
Case Keenum. What do you think I
What'd
picked?
you pick?
10 seconds left in the game. Vikings down 1. A drop back to Stephon Diggs, evades a tackle, runs all the way for the game-winning touchdown. Of course, it has now been named the Minnesota Miracle. The Vikings advance to the NFC Championship game. I think fans were sold on him, though, before that moment, but that certainly didn't help. So when the season gets here, guys, will he be tagged, have agreed to a long-term deal, or do you think he's going to hit free agency? So, Dan, I'll start with you.
I think he'll be signed to a long-term deal in Minnesota. I think they may tag him in the meantime while they work on it, but I think ultimately he goes back there. The one caveat I want to throw out there is if the Vikings, and we don't know yet if they will, but if they make a pursuit of Kirk Cousins, I believe they're a team that could get him. And if that's the case, then I think Keenum goes elsewhere. If what Keenum wants is to break the bank somewhere, and they don't franchise him, then I think he could go elsewhere. But I think unless they're in the Cousins hunt, I believe that Keenum is their quarterback next year, and he's probably signed to a deal.
Bill, they have so much information on him. He was basically their starter for the entire season. Does it make sense for them to do whatever it takes to keep him because they have so much knowledge?
Well, for one thing, you don't have to do whatever it takes. For another, they have to be sure that they're going to have the same kind of offensive structure, because a lot of that statistic was based on bootlegs, not on breaking the pocket and broken plays. It's a designed bootleg, which they do very well, and he does very well. But in the short run, the short answer is keep him. You had great success with him. Why would you change? And it's not likely that if they tag and talk, that they won't reach a long-term agreement.
Lou, Bill, you both can answer. So what is Case Keenum's worth? What do you think he's worth?
You know, I have said I would see I would see this contract getting done for me based on my research somewhere between in the $21-22 million a year range. And would you take that for Case Keenum? Would you be comfortable paying that as opposed to getting into the Kirk Cousins sweepstakes, which may get up at 27, 28 plus? Is it really that big of a difference? Do you really want to do that? That's why for me, this seems like, and I'm assuming. Look, I'm not going to speak for Case Keenum. I'm assuming he'd be comfortable with being paid that amount of money. 22 million a year. I would assume he'd take that money. Now, there are obviously some warning signs kind of a little bit with the Vikings as far as their unwillingness to really commit to him all year long, as far as the verbiage that you heard coming from their head coach all year long, how he wouldn't really fully back the guy. It was always like from week to week. Well, you know what, Case looked okay. Well, Teddy's coming along. Well, it never seemed like a full 100% buy-in. It'll be interesting to see if that has any bearing on their ability to strike a long-term deal.
The Teddy situation, whether or not he's back with the Vikings because his contract is told or whether he hits the market, will have a big impact on the number for Case Keenum. I think Case Keenum's going to be there no matter what, but the number is impacted by what happens to Teddy.
All right, I'm going to let you guys off the hook on the panic or patience involving the Vikings, but we're going to come back.